All right, what is going on, Coin Observatory? Thank you for tuning into today's power hour. Let me clean my glasses off real quick. So since 8:13, I've been preaching about an incoming short squeeze, right? And we've just been waiting for it. And I've published quite a bit of works, 4 articles, and a Tradingview idea, along with all the posts we've had in Discord. So I kind of made this public and try to get more people in to realize this opportunity that's coming. And there's a little bit of FUD in the market in the sense of what's going to happen with the Proshares ETF. And I'm going to cover why the Proshares ETF is slightly different. All right. What's going on, Mads? Matt Long, good morning. So, yes, good morning, everyone. Caught you guys on a morning power hour. Been doing them at night. I think I'm going to start alternating doing morning power hours and night power hours. In the video description, I put the links to the 5 articles. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Somebody's honking. Anyways, in the video description, I put links to the 5 articles that we've published since 8/13. And I'm going to kind of go through them with the first one, which is it says 5 reasons. There's only 4 of them. And this was on the 13th, August 13th. This one's on Medium. Next up, the next day I published when the long opportunity was, which was at 60.40. That was Bitcoin's price when I put up this trading idea. That's essentially when I longed it on margin. And I'm gonna go ahead and kind of zoom out so everybody can see this. So we were at 60.40. I compared this to where we were at that previous last year in like November, where we had a very similar setup with a short squeeze setting up and an accumulation period, distribution period, a throwback. Last year we had an automatic rally over here. We didn't quite see an automatic rally happen this time, but we saw the short squeeze take place. A lot of people are screaming, oh, it's a manipulation because of BitMEX, and I'll try to touch up on that too. All the information was public. BitMEX had it was all over Twitter. If you have a BitMEX account, you had a notification saying there was going to be downtime. So if your stops weren't tight enough and you weren't long, since we've been posting on this, I don't, kind of picked the wrong side of history there. And I try to keep this one very much updated with divergences on the shorts chart, with what we were seeing on the intradays. I highlighted that the bear trap was getting more and more aggressive because we'd see these series of bear flags and BTC USD shorts come in, and essentially more shorts piling in every time we see a bear flag. Even on this dip, it sent shorts parabolic again. In the final dip, did a great job at doing so. So market makers were essentially trying to bring in more and more shorts for a juicier squeeze. And I don't believe the squeeze is over yet. I think the ETF announcement's really going to make or break and decide what happens and how far up we go, or how far up we don't go, or how far down we come before making the next leg up. Afterwards, I posted the market update. This was, I believe, 8/17. So 3 days after the trading idea, I put up a market update on where we were, what's going on in the market, what I see alts doing in this range. There's links to all these articles, and what we're gonna expect out of alts based on the dominance, where I had been preaching that, hey, we need to stay away from alts past 24% and see how they react at 17%. That's where they found dominance support. And we saw that bounce come in, and we'll go into market dominance a little later. And that was also on Medium. And I also, on the August 19th, I highlighted the anatomy of a short squeeze, where what is a short squeeze, how it develops, how to spot one, and why I was so firmly believing that we're coming up on one. And we actually saw it take place yesterday, which was really exciting. And then finally, I've got a written article on Proshares ETF. This is how we were deciding to play this had the squeeze not happened before the ETF announcement. So I was expecting the squeeze to be further delayed, but I guess the BitMEX downtime created a perfect opportunity for market makers to essentially execute the squeeze, or start the squeeze execution while BitMEX was down. So here's a lot of futures not being traded on the highest volume exchange of derivatives and futures as far as Bitcoin goes, being suspended for 30 minutes, great opportunity to start the squeeze. And I had known about this squeeze and I didn't say anything about it in Discord. I don't want to create any FUD. I had a lot of confidence in our positions and in what we were seeing, and I saw this go either way, and it went in our favor, right? Like my stop losses executed because they were pretty tight on my short position on my hedge. My long position is sitting at like 200 something percent profit from that 60-40, and yeah, things are looking good. Here we're looking at the Bitcoin USD chart on the left and the BTC USD shorts on the right. I'm gonna go ahead and check for questions before I keep moving forward. Should I have done instead less tight of a stop loss? Mads, I'm not sure what you had your stop loss. Hello, Beth. Mads, what was your stop loss? What was your entry on BTC? I'm just curious. Well, while I'll wait for your answer, I'm just gonna go into the BTC chart. So on the VPVR, right, we see a little bit of volume gap where we might come back down and retest that neckline for the inverse. It looks like an inverse head and shoulders, but I'm not gonna call it that, right? Because we saw one not too long ago. We do see a little bit of volume gap down here, right? So we might come down and test that 6,500 range, and that would be basically a good entry if it's not fueled by FUD. If it's fueled by FUD, we might come back down and retest some lower lows or retest the previous low. But what's interesting is for the first time, we're seeing a rally come in, right? A pretty big rally or a short squeeze occur at a higher low. Essentially, this last low at 58 was a higher low than the previous low at 57, right? Just simple charting principles. And what's more interesting as well is we're kind of seeing a higher high from this failed rally. This is more of a big bear flag. So we're seeing this higher high form. We're seeing a higher low. If this squeeze can push us back up to that 72 range and potentially form a higher high above the 84.85, that might bring in quite a bit of money into the market. As in, we've got a higher low and a higher high, and that would essentially insinuate that there's an uptrend here. That's the definition of an uptrend. When we're drawing trend lines, lower low, lower high, downtrend, higher low, higher high is uptrend. So we want to see. I want to see what happens if we get a continuation, because there's quite a bit of volume gaps, right, all the way up to 72. There's quite a bit of gap downs and gap ups on the Bitcoin futures chart on CME, and that's going to be another chart we're going to look into. After the squeeze, do you think there will be further movement before tomorrow's decision? So, I think tomorrow's decision can come out early, just like what we saw with the decision for the Gemini, or the Winklevoss brothers ETF, right? The SEC's got a deadline, but they can make a decision before the deadline. Here I've got shorts underwater highlighted, essentially right where that crosshair is. Short starting building up their positions back at that 6,200, right? And at that point, we only had 27,000 shorts in the market. Yesterday went up to 40, and we're currently sitting at a 36. So there's about 9,000 short positions that are underwater. So I don't think the squeeze is over. I really don't think the squeeze is over. I think the market's still waiting on the ETFs to decide which way it's going to go. And that's why I had posted the Proshares ETF. I believe this was the 21st, so this was just yesterday. Yesterday morning, I posted on that ETF. Real quickly, so I'm talking about the ETF. This one's different. This one's futures based. It's not settled in BTC, so it might have more of a likelihood of getting accepted as far as the proposal goes. and in a sense of it's not settled in Bitcoin, it's based on BTC futures. And since the SEC already approved Bitcoin futures, and we're seeing CBOE futures trade and CME futures trade, there's a likelihood of this one passing. But this one's got a lot of ETFs, right? It's not as a lot of proposals. There's a proposal for a Bitcoin long ETF. There's a proposal for a Bitcoin short ETF. So when it comes to ProShares, I'm seeing this as very much of a neutral force because it's not one-sided. There's an investment vehicle for investors to long Bitcoin via ETF and profit from BTC futures gaining in value. And there's also an investment vehicle for investors and institutions to short Bitcoin and profit from BTC losing value. So it's a double-edged sword, right? And the overall outcome is almost net neutral, because if you've got a long ETF, that's positive. It allows money to come in and profit off Bitcoin gaining in value. And if you have a short ETF, you're going to profit off the loss in value. So we're looking here at like a net neutral type of setup. But a rejection could essentially say, oh, this one's not going to pass. None of the others are going to pass. We need to be bearish. I did read an article today about, Bitcoin needing an ETF to continue this rally, or else we're headed to 3K or 5K or a 1K doomsday. I'm not of that thinking, right? BTC didn't quite get to 6K on ETFs. We didn't get to 17K on ETFs. So rejection of ETFs shouldn't put us any lower. Even back here, I said, hey guys, I don't think this is quite just an ETF move. And during this downturn, I was saying this market is really overreacting. And what's nice is that we established this, this bottom. Let's call it a bottom, and now we're back at that inverse head and shoulders neckline. BTC was able to break 7,200 on some exchanges yesterday, which was really interesting. I wasn't expecting it to go up that far, that fast. I'm going to go back to your questions. Any questions on the ProShares ETF? If you guys go to the ProShares website, they're actually a really interesting. They're really interesting. They actually have an ETF where people can profit off the decline in brick and mortar stores because of like e-commerce. So they've been really revolutionary in their ETFs. They've gotten various ETFs passed, and they're creative, right? They create these markets out of thin air where people can profit off market declines or market advances, and so they've been pretty good at that previously. For instance, entry at 64.20, gotten stopped at 63.50. Also made a sell at 6,500 some days ago. I bought at 6,300 instead of holding because I thought it could be going back forth for a few days. So Mads, this is why I don't like dancing with positions, right? I'm gonna go into the chart. Whenever we establish a range, it's a good idea to long the bottom of the range with one future and short the top of the range with another future. So we're going to go into the range in the past few days. I'm just going to go off candle bottoms just for future reference. All right, so this is where the candles bottomed out, and let's look for the top of the range. We're going to negate that last high because it only broke it once. Even if it was a tight constricted range, let's go from 64.48 as a high and a 62.60 as a range low, right? This is where the hedges are going to come into play. One would long the range low with a stop below the lowest fractal. So if I was to long 62.57, I would put my stop at 62.04. And if I was to short the top of the range, and we're going to negate these two highs. We really can at this point. Let's say we negate these two highs. If I was to short that 64.53, I'd want my stop to be right here at 65.60 or so above that higher fractal, just to allow for movement. And instead of dancing with positions, we've got a long open and we have a short open with proper stops. So if the chart was to break out downwards from the range, right, we would essentially get stopped out of the long. And if it would break up like it did yesterday, we would get stopped out of our short. And I actually highlighted this in my video that's in the Medium article from yesterday, the one, the Proshares ETF, and this video right here. And I shared it with you guys in Discord and in my notes. So this video essentially highlights how I had played this. And I had said, I posted, hey, you know, good long opportunity at 6,300 on that dip. And we dipped a little lower before the breakout. And this is why I really like taking positions at these previous lows where I longed 60.40, and I actually posted that on Tradingview as well, because that being the next, you know, the lowest low as of this time frame, as what we're looking at right now on the chart, that's gonna be the safest entry. And when you start getting to that 6,600, you know, a short up here would be ideal. Like this is how I like to hedge my trades, right? So there's all this room over here, and all this is, to me, it's just noise. I don't care what's happening inside the range. I'm trading the breakout, right? Because if I'm long from 60.40 and we break out and then I get stopped out from my short up here, anything that this short loses, them being equal in value, my long already made all the way up here and then some for the breakout. And same goes for the downside. So with margin trading, I don't believe in trying to capture every $200 move. I like the big swings. I like being able to hedge and go to sleep and not watch every candle, not watch every other candle. It's just a healthier lifestyle for that's just, and also it's more congruent with my trading style, with my lifestyle, and I think it's a lot more profitable with a lot less trades, right? Gotta silence this phone. Sorry, everyone. Burnsy Dog, how many trades a month am I making? Well, we did trade the 6,200, 58 and 62 all the way up to 84. Got stopped out in this range, or even like down here on this trade. So that was one trade, and then a short down here. So very few. We don't trade perpetuals. I don't trade perpetuals. I trade the futures and I hedge them against each other. When I find a hedging opportunity, I take advantage of it. So in terms of hedges, when we establish a new range, I hedge the top against the long. And when I short the top, I find an entry to long it. So if I was to short here, you know, if I was to short 66 with no long at 60.40, I would be wanting to hunt down a long just in case the chart goes against the short. And often I'll get stopped out more times than I'd like to. So I can get stopped out on a short once or twice, but it's all about position sizing. So when that position's about, you know, 5 to 10% of an account size, it's okay to get stopped out on 10-15%, because then we're really only risking like 1 to 2 to 3% of an account size in that position overall portfolio. But then whenever we catch the really big swings, that's a 1,600% gain. So it's a risk management strategy that really works on 25x and 50x leverage. Let me answer this one more question. Here's 6,300, middle of the range within. The reason I said to pick 6,300 is because it was forming a higher low, right? We had a lower low, higher low, and this would essentially be in line with the previous low and essentially establishing a new range. And we dipped past it for the next leg up. And now we're essentially coming back down right now, 66.10 as of current. All right, I'm gonna thank you, Burns Dog. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and go into CoinMarketCap. And you know, look at market cap's dropped 2 billion last couple hours. It's 217 earlier today. And I still think there's quite a bit of uncertainty regarding Proshares. And I still think that there's still more room to squeeze shorts. And I really want to pay attention to altcoin dominance before we get into actual altcoins today, just to give us somewhat of a clear perspective, a clear idea of where they are in terms of dominance. I tend to go live and do power hours like this 2 to 3 times a week, depending on the week. And when the market is a lot more active, we do these a lot more often. So last year we were doing these twice a day, November, December, just because everyone needed updates on their altcoin positions. So all right, when we started first getting the ETF news and we saw that inverse head and shoulders come in, I'd mentioned that if we do get an ETF approval, that alts are gonna suffer because BTC could go on a surge. And essentially said, tying up stops on alts and don't look back, right? And we really wanted to see what happens where alts, the white line, right, the others found support previously, which is 17.30%. And on the way down, right at 17.97, alts found support. 17.95, right, that 17% range, we found alts find support. And I actually didn't signal much alts up until a few days ago because I wanted to make sure we're not seeing dead cat bounces. I wanted us to find some solid formations. I wanted our algorithms to pick up on things. I really wanted to get established a sense of what's going to happen. And now we're starting to see alts attempt to make a rally, which is a good thing. Some of them are failing their rallies, others are upholding. Whoa, just wicked all the way down. So essentially you want to see altcoins get into a turn and start heading back up into the 24-25 range of percent dominance. Burns Dog, what platform? Futures, BitMEX. All right, well, I'm essentially done with market dominance. I'm done with BTC. This is a good 25 minutes talking about quite a bit going on in the market. I'm ready for some altcoins. If you guys want to show me some altcoin requests, I will cover them. I'll give you my my personal opinion. It's not financial advice. It is how I would essentially execute these trades and how I would treat some of these tokens. So you guys want to hit me with some tokens, I will gladly go over them for you. What's up, Mads? At this point, I would look for the retest of the snake line. So like this right here looks pretty good. We're almost getting a rejection wick. Let me go into a 30-minute chart. This is I'd wait for the next candle here. If you set up your TD sequential on Tradingview, it's a free. Well, you got to be pro, I think, to get this indicator. It looks like there's a fractal of 64.55, right? And it, you know, essentially trading above that should put us back up into the higher range. I scale out and I take profits, and a lot of times I just flat out exit or I set a stop loss, right? I mean, setting a stop in the gains. I hadn't set a stop, so I'm still long from 60.40 as of currently. Facebook, YouTube. Anybody have any altcoin requests? No altcoin requests? Nope. All right, we're getting Lumen, OMG. All right, Lumens. Lumens is quite bullish on news. We haven't seen any like bearish developments. We did see it. We do see it setting up in a big triangle. I wouldn't currently pick a long in Lumens until it retests support. But one thing we're also seeing on the market, if you're gonna look at other alts as well, if you look at BAT, it was doing the same thing. It might not quite look like it in the beginning, but then we also saw this pennant developing, and this pennant, looked to be a little more bullish than Lumens. But then what happened? Price broke down. Price broke down from support, and now it's kind of forming a bull flag after a bear flag. I'd let this one essentially simmer, find a breakout formation to get back in. The reason I'm highlighting BAT is because of Lumens in the current situation. We also saw another rejection on BAT. It was forming another pennant, a pennant that we actually traded for a 40% gain, and which was essentially right here. And we saw support break once, we saw support break twice, right? It did a failed rally, a big rejection wick, and or a hammer, and boom, now we're breaking back down. This looks like a promising bull flag. Back to Lumens. I just wanted to show you guys the similarities I'm seeing between BAT and Lumens. So Lumens also setting up in a triangle. I'd want to see what happens down here. Markets are about patience. Right, there's not always a trade to be made unless you can short. And right here, if I could short Lumen, I'd essentially be short down to, it's not a big move, so I wouldn't even touch it. I'd want to see what happens at these lows, right? If I'm long in Lumens, I should probably look for a stop if I'm not stopped out. You guys know I've been running some pretty tight stops. I'm gonna cover Ether, OMG. I'm gonna go over ETH USD. Whoa, it does not look good. On the intradays, I believe Lido or Can Be, one of our junior analysts was saying they see somewhat of a falling wedge on ETH USD. I don't quite see it. As of right now, ETH doesn't appear to have much momentum, right? I was fairly bullish on ETH. It's actually retesting previous lows from December, and we definitely have a lower low, right? And that's not too promising. Let's check for like an RSI divergence. We see an RSI failure swing on the BTC chart, but we've seen several of these before. I'd wait and see what happens. If you do get a rebound, it might look good for an entry in terms of BTC. In terms of USD, once again, I'm seeing not quite a failure swing. We still get an RSI triple bottom on the 4-hour. I'd wait for a breakout formation before trading any of these, and ETH tends to set up in like flags and ranges before it breaks out. So I'd wait for a range to be established. I'm gonna give you guys like a clear-cut example. this is when I like entering trades to the long side. All right, we see a range established, and then we see another range established. All right, this is when I like picking entries. So we see a range which is 3 touches, 1, 2, 3, fourth touch at the top, comes back down, doesn't quite touch the bottom of the range, breaks out, establishes a new range. So you got 1, 2, 3 touches back into the previous range. Once this is the area that I like getting in a long term, let's not call them a hodl, but a long that's gonna be really profitable. I don't like dancing around with positions. So if you look at this ETH chart, we want to see a range established. We want to see a break above the range for like the actual play to go long. Currently, where are we? How do we line up with previous ranges? Well, let's look at do we have a range? We're gonna go last low, last high. So we're looking at a possible range. We still don't have the third touch. And you can't quite identify a range without a third touch. So based on these levels, there's not quite a range. And yeah, I'd wait for the range to be established first. Altcoin. I had an entry, a long entry on Saya with a stop at 82. Essentially got stopped out of Saya, but it's looking like it's got some juice. There's quite a little bit of FUD, but also interesting announcements and developments happening on Altcoin. We're seeing somewhat of a wedge, right? And so long as it doesn't get shaken out and break below it, so we want to see Saya essentially either retest the slow, stop that at 82, right? I want to see Saya come back down and retest the slow and make a rally. They've got some interesting developments on the fundamental side that are rolling in this month. EOS. It's looking fairly similar to the Saya setup. I've essentially stayed away from EOS for quite some time. We also don't have a range established. Not quite momentum there yet. We could probably have a range. Broke up above the range. But actually, I do see a range. Right, so EOS, I see a range 1, 2, 3, 4 touches, broke up, having a throwback, somewhat of tweezer bottoms on this 4-hour chart, right? So a throwback trader or pullback trader would want to get in on the throwback and with a stop at the bottom of the range. So I'm just going to put some arrows here. This is called a throwback, right? Because we did see a range established, we saw a breakout, and it came back, and now it's retesting previous levels of resistance, which we want to see if this previous resistance, which turned into support, is currently becoming support again, whether it's going to hold or not. So this would be a decent entry pick, right? A tight stop would be a 72,745 above or below that previous fractal low, right? And then a looser stop would be at the bottom of the range. Or if one wanted to do a buy ladder, right? If you got more capital to work with, you can essentially double down. One can essentially double down with a looser stop below the last fractal low, which would be 68,874. Just depends how much risk one wants to assume, how much of a breakout trader they are, and their patience levels. All right, Z Classic. I would not touch that right now. Looking like a bear flag that's currently breaking down. You guys, hit me with some more altcoin requests. You got plenty of time. ZRX, Nano. Oh, I missed OMG. I'm gonna go over OMG and then we'll go over ZRX and Nano. Omizigo, retesting previous lows, right? $3.64. I don't quite see a range yet. RSI looking neutral. Let me go on a 1 day. There could be a lower low coming, right? And this is why I haven't just shelled out signals. I want to be able to get into alts and not have to worry about the next move. I'm still getting just got another sell signal in my current market conditions moving averages that we built just for what's going on in the market right now, because there's nothing but like these really short-term swings. It wasn't even a really strong buy signal when it occurred, and now it's still looking like a sell. It's on the USD chart. Omizigo, BTC, the same thing. We're back at previous lows. And we could try to establish range. This is the third touch. If we're seeing a sell-off, we're gonna see this BTC sell-off continue. We could see alts take another leg down. Going over Nano. Nano looks really strong, right? We're seeing a pennant, we're seeing a breakout. It's actually defying what the market's doing. Just on the daily, there's a little bit of a bull flag that's currently breaking out, right? A breakout trader would buy the flag breakout, stop below these tweezer bottoms, and let it run. Let's look for divergences. I don't see divergences. We still have an open buy signal on the moving averages since 8:15. This is why I developed these, right? So whenever we have a cross, it's a death cross, it's a get out. So Nano looks pretty good. Daily RSI is at 58. That's pretty awesome. ZRX, XRP, Dragon, Neo. Alright, so let's slow down on altcoin requests. Let me cover everything we got in, and then I'll ask for more. Alright, ZRX headed back down. Any single trade that I mentioned with an entry had a stop loss, right? And should be stopped out of ZRX. And what's going on with ZRX? Remember what I said about lumens not too long ago? I said we're seeing these triangles develop, these pennants, and we're seeing tokens break down past support. And this is exactly the same setup as BAT, right? And market unison in a sense, just some things are slightly delayed, and that's why it's good to analyze all alts and come back and make our opinions. And here we saw support come in and really reject the price back up, and then on the next retest of support it broke down and became resistance. So I would shy away from ZRX currently. I would look for ZRX to come back down to previous April levels. And there's really no reason for ZRX to go bearish, right? It's just the market's in a sell-off. So I'd essentially look for back into this range breakout, right? Ripple. XRP was having a rejection at the breakout yesterday, or at the consolidation. And let's look at the 4 hour. So intraday, I was eyeing Ripple for an entry. It looks like it could be a decent entry, right? We had this triangle develop, and we saw this rejection occur here, and now it's currently, sitting there, not quite at the downtrend, but it's trying to find support. Well, let's draw a fib. Let's see, we get a 50% retracement yet. So last swing low, last swing high, sitting at a 38.2 fib, right? So the minute we put a Fibonacci retracement on there, we can essentially see what's going on. We see somewhat of a tweezer bottoms. I'd wait for this thing to break out past the downtrend to get in, or at 50% or 61.8. This is what I was talking about. Alts are attempting to rally. They're just getting rejected. This was the first attempt at a rally. You might see 2-3 attempts before we actually get the push. But if they can range trade for some time and not make lower lows, that would be more interesting. Another perspective on this one would be this is a almost a descending triangle. Right? This could almost be, but it's not quite. Dragon, Neo. This thing's clearly in a sell-off. I don't see an entry. I don't see momentum to the upside. There's a little bit of an intraday bull fire. I don't know. This thing's on one exchange. What's the volume right now? 10 BTC. Don't look promising for Dragon Chain right now. There's a little bit of a bull flag. A little bit of a breakout. Came back down. Currently below the bull flag. I'd wait for a range to be established. Is this our 3 touches? It's not. We have a breach. Unless we get a rejection and we start trading back up. So as of now, I'd look for that 3rd touch. If I was a range trader, I'd buy the bottom of the range, try to sell the top of the range. Neo. Look at Neo USD. Back at that $17. We saw another chart that looked like this, that had these like 3 waves, and this is interesting. Almost diamond formation, broke up. I would wait and see what Neo USD does down here, right? I mean, if this was our range, we had a 1, 2, 3 touch breakout above, come back down. What's going on here, guys? This is probably a throwback. Intraday throwback on Neo. And we want to see if this level can hold. If this level holds, one can essentially buy on the bottom of this range and look to see what happens at the top and just start laddering back up. If we put a fib on here, this looks like a 50% retracement of this small move up. And it is. It's actually a little lower than a 50%. So now if it looks like range bound. It sure was. And we shorted at like 170. We were shorting Neo. Alright guys, I'll take 2 more altcoin requests. MFT. Right, MFT starting to break down from what was looking like a really bullish formation, right? We saw this, well, it's not quite a rising wedge, but we did see a clear pennant take place. Currently stopped out, and that's why we have these stop losses. We don't want to hodl coins. We want to define, anytime we enter a trade, we want to have a defined risk, a predefined risk of how much we're willing to risk. and accept that, right? So if it's a 5% stop, 10% stop, that's the risk on that trade. And it makes sense. Why is it that risk? Well, because, break below is going to invalidate a formation. Now, if we were to look at this in terms of ranges, we want to see where the next turn is. So if you can get a third touch and a turn here, then we're looking at a possibility of a range. But for now, it's I'm stopped out. All right, well, fam, thank you for tuning into this power hour. If you need me, I'll be on our Discord. If you're not on our Discord, you want to join, get on coinobservatory.com. There should be a link to Burnsy Dog. We do have a premium service. Type a link to our website. Yeah, you can essentially sign up there, get in our Discord. We'll take you through a tour and show you around our Discord and how we operate. And you can communicate with myself, some of our analysts, some of our junior analysts, get access to our margin trading, get access to our findings, and to our trading ideas. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great day. And I'll catch you on Discord. I'll catch you on our next market updates. I'm going to put out another newsletter probably in the next couple of hours. So check your emails. And happy gaining.